I'd rather like snort the cow's butthole than play that game again. Like, it was not a good game.
Instead of buying skins, it's, you buy, William Shatner as your handler.
Oh my god! Oh man!
That's why there's no eject button in Armored Core. You just die like men.
The ship's approaching Rubicon. Wake up the dogs.
Establishing cerebral-coral connection. Link verified.
Hey there, pilots. This is Noisy Ren, transmitting the Rubicon Dogs podcast from somewhere out among the stars, bringing you all the Armored Core data you need to survive the battlefield. Let's get to it. Welcome back, or welcome in, to episode 5 of the podcast. Crazy how the time flies. I guess I'm nothing if not consistent, at least. Before we get started, just a quick note that the program I used to record everybody in this one that I typically use to record my guests and myself during the podcast, the servers seem to have bitten the dust or are otherwise non-functional, which is problematic in a lot of ways, but suffice it to say that the intro and a few little snippets were recorded on a different program, and so have just a little bit different sound quality to them that you might notice. But minus that, everything should run pretty smoothly. We haven't had a whole lot of new AC6 related news, but we did get a little snippet in the form of a Korean interview that's been electronically translated. So the translation's a little bit, hit and miss, but I think there's some good little bits of information in there. So we'll be covering that today, as well as I have some guests to chat with about kind of anything and everything Armored Core related. So joining me today are returning guest Auzryel, a veteran player who's been mostly involved with the PvE aspects of the game. And then we have two new guests, Philaroni, another vet who's been around since the beginning, and Ark, who's also played since AC1, but more recently has had his finger on the pulse of multiplayer, especially in 5th gen, probably much more so than some of the rest of us. And so I want to get his perspective too on, what the multiplayer may look like in AC6 or what he hopes to see. So without further ado, I will let them introduce themselves, and we'll get started.
Do you want to go first, Ark? Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your history with the series?
Yeah, sure. So I've been playing AC since the first game in 97. I didn't come to own them until years later because I was 9 at the time, but basically I was the one kid in town that would go down to the rental shop or like the little rental store and spend my $5 allowance on the same game, 3 weeks in a row just so I could beat it. From there, pretty much, I just grew up with the series. Kind of really came into the community itself with 5th gen with ACV, and kind of really stuck it there. I wasn't really too involved with the community. I was a kid for the older games, so, couldn't really get too involved, but, ACV was definitely the sort of like breakout title for me that not that got me hooked, but that got me like sort of more introduced with, oh hey, there's other people besides me that actually play this video game. So
yeah.
That's kind of a brief, in brief.
Cool. So what about you, Phil?
It's funny, he brings up the rental thing. I've done the exact same thing. I was wondering if you're going to say this, Ark. Did you rent it so much that they just gave you the copy? Because that's what happened with Armored Core Another Age for me. I rented it so much that the guy is just like, you can just keep it because you're the only one renting it.
They didn't let me keep it, but when they eventually started like phasing out the PS1 games and they put them on sale, it's like the guy behind the counter knew to just hang on to it so I could give him the $5 to just own the game.
I guess for me, like I started the first Armored Core I ever played was actually Armored Core 2. It was the first game I ever got when I got a PS2. Funny enough, my brother and I had like a little fight about this because there's another mech game called Gun Griffin Blaze that came out around the same time. If you ever played it, and our dad would only buy us one of them, and being the older brother, of course, I won. Back in the age check days of Armored Core, I mean, I was on forums, everything. I was actually talking to developers way back then. We were talking about like, oh, it'd be so cool if there was a game that had like an Earth and Mars campaign. Because I was thinking kind of like Gundam in a way,
Yeah.
like combine the stories and whatnot. And then over time, I mean, I played every single one of them. Went back and played all the old ones with the exception of Portable Ops. I didn't get a chance to get one of those, so I couldn't import it. Well, I probably could have. It just didn't. I did not have the money. Imports from Japan were expensive. But I guess since then, yeah. I mean, if there's an Armored Core game that exists, with the exception of that one, I have played thousands and thousands of hours of it. Played the multiplayer quite a bit, which we'll touch on a little bit later. I mean, I guess outside of that, other random experience things. I have a degree in game design development. Worked on several games. Formerly worked at Microsoft some years back in Azure, so I have a lot of technical know-how, I guess you can say.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure a little bit of insight into what goes on behind the scenes that none of us would really be familiar with.
Oh, you don't want to know what's going on behind the scenes. Well, you probably do, but trust me, game design's a dirty business, man. Like it's you will be at each other's throats especially if you
jeez.
work on new IPs. Well, not all the time, but
I've heard that it's like a disaster early on and that nothing really comes together till like 6 months before release.
yeah, a lot of times that's the case. Even some of the old products I worked on many years back, like because it takes so long to make. This is why I'm just shocked that there's even another Armored Core. Like I thought it'd be dead before there'd be another Armored Core, but my 13 years of patience have paid off.
Dude, I know. Yeah, usually you assume after 10 years that that is just dead and gone and you will never see that again. So I think everybody was in shock about that one.
Yeah, there's not too many series that have come back after 10 years. I think the only other one that I can think of is like Persona.
I will give
Mm.
Armored Core this though. The thing is, like, Armored Core's never sold well. It's never been popular. But people forget it's like outside of Kingsfield. I think that's like From Software's like first game that was published. Which I'm kind of curious about the name. I kind of wish they didn't call it a numbered game. I wish they just called it Armored Core, Fires Rubicon. But I was looking back. Sony actually published the original Armored Core 1. So I'm wondering if Sony has a license to just that
It's
plain Jane
very
name.
possible. Because,
Oh,
like, I know,
yeah.
like, AC's history is so just screwed up between different publishers and licensing. And, like, there's a lot of people who are asking, well, why can't we get the old games ported or whatever? It's like, because there's a lot of money that would have to change hands.
It was A-Tech, Ubisoft, Sega published it. I think that was the thing. And then Sony at one point, like it's been through so many publishers,
Well, and
and
the thing is
Yeah.
that's only the North American publishers.
yeah,
You go over to like Australia had Red Ant, EU had what 505, Metro 3D, some other one, Crave, I think.
Isn't Bandai in there as well?
yeah. Now
Uh,
Bandai was publishing this one, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
Bandai's
I
involved
think
with
they
this one.
published. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's just so many, rights, especially when you get into the global companies that I think are holding back all the old games, which I guess is just a problem with the industry in general, right? Is this old games just
Oh
get
yeah.
stuck in, limbo,
Yeah.
and then you end up with, the only way to do it is just to download them online and emulate them to play it because they'll just never be released. Still, fingers crossed that maybe someday we'll get just like a released pack of all the old games and like remastered. Wouldn't that be nice?
I have a suspicion. Um, I think we might see because Sony's doing PlayStation Classic games a little bit. That they're starting to get PS1 games onto their service. It'd be great if Armored Core 1 and some of the like Project Phantasma and that stuff would
Mhm.
come out as part of
Yeah.
that just before this game. Because
What?
most of the fan base is on PlayStation. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and to that effect, AC1 is already on like the PS3, the PS3 and the PSP shops under the
Yep.
PS1 classics, and like everything in that catalog so far has, well, not everything, but like all the stuff that they've uploaded for the PS1 games for the PS Plus Premium, whatever, have come from that collection. So there's a very good chance that AC1 will be ported up eventually. Project
Yeah.
Phantasma and Master of Arena, probably a little bit less of a chance, because those are available in Japan, but only in Japan. So
It's a shame too. That's a shame.
That was back in the days though too, where so many things were region locked, unlike nowadays.
yeah,
Oh yeah, you have to buy, a special console or like the Japanese version of the game, and
Or you break your PS2
Yeah.
and get a different BIOS and do all the
Yeah.
illegal stuff they don't want you to do.
avoid the
True
warranty.
story. I don't think I've ever used my PlayStation's warranty anyway. It's fine.
I really
cool.
hope they do bring Phantasma and MOA. They're so fundamental for Armored Core as a whole. The first one came out kind of, seeing if it worked or not, and then they actually, got a little bit of momentum, and then started to really distinguish its own flavor. Stinger
Right.
from Phantasma, the first more or less arms force, I
Oh.
guess if you will, and then our first, primary antagonist that they, did reuse Nine Ball a few times,
Yeah.
and yeah, I really hope they do bring it back.
Maybe
That
we'll
would be
get
pretty
the
awesome, yeah.
cameos for Nine Ball and White Glint and other ones in
Oh.
AC6.
At least Nine Ball, they had doggone better.
I feel like there's a tiny bit of, I mean, they could just throw it in there and be like, oh, this person's, Nine Ball, but there's a tiny bit of room in there, even like lore wise with White Glint kind of changing pilots and Nine Ball and being, an AI, things like that. There's room there to
Oh yeah, there's
use it
definitely
in.
room. It's very fertile for it. Yeah, even in Armor Core 2, they had Hustler Zero, I think, who was just like supposed to allegedly like a copycat, and he was just like lower in the arena.
Yeah.
I mean, they could totally do something where, and that would be a great DLC. Is like the Nine Ball, like you have to like fight Nine Ball, but it's like a recovered AI. It's the
Mhm.
Nine Ball AI or something like that, or even
be
like
Ooh.
that'd be really cool. There's a lot they could do with that.
If nothing else, they could make it like a sort of guest boss, kind of like Nine Ball Seraph and Phantasma were in Another Age.
Yep, just thinking that too. Did they have Stinger in there at any point?
I don't
Oh, that's a good
remember.
question.
I think they
I don't
did.
recall.
I don't recall either, but yeah, they definitely had the first, the regular, and then the Seraph version of Nine Ball.
Yeah,
So I
there's room
think that
for it.
kind of brings us to something that we could see in multiplayer is going back to something like Five's world bosses. It would be interesting if they don't give us kind of main storyline stuff to bring in some co-op like hard bosses.
That is definitely possible. I know that the world bosses were a pretty popular feature, especially in like the Japanese community. Not quite as much as the actual PvP portion, but
Yeah.
there were still a lot of people who really liked the world bosses because they were fun, they were unique. They were something different than just gunning down a bunch of MTs and planes.
I think a lot of people forget because this is constantly the conversation online. Is everyone's like, "Oh, is Armored Core like a Souls-like?" I'm like, "No, Souls-like is an Armored Core-like."
Yep.
They learned to. It's the other way
Uh-huh.
around. It's an
Thank
Armored
you.
Core-like. Like it's like this is that kind of stuff. The world, but that was done so long ago. It's just not many people really played Armored Core. Like it barely. I don't think one game sold over 2 million copies. I mean,
Yeah, I don't think so.
today that'd be unsustainable. So I keep seeing this. People are like, because it's from software and they're so damn popular right now. Everyone's like, oh, I want to play with anything they make right now will sell, no matter what.
Oh yeah.
But no one has any idea. Like a lot of people are just like Dark Souls fans, which again, a lot of them forget about Demon Souls. That was the OG for that
Uh-huh.
stuff.
The original Swamp. Well, no, Kingsfield, I think, had a Swamp too.
I never played Kingsfield.
I played
If I did, it was
like
so long ago.
I played like maybe 20 minutes, half an hour of the first one that came over here, so that would have been Kingsfield 2. But again, I was like 9 or 10, and
Mm.
That's not a friendly game for adults, let alone a child.
Dude, Armor Core is not a friendly game for anyone as a child.
No, that's true.
I was gonna say that's what amazes me that Armored Core ever took off with the control scheme of number 1. Why nobody didn't pick that up and just immediately put it down? Never again.
Yeah, that was the first barrier of entry was that. It really was. But then it came out before DualShocks were a thing.
I know, exact. Thank you. I was hoping someone would bring that up. And it took till Nexus, I think, until they actually adopted
Incorporated it. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think 2 was the first to give analog support.
Well, I don't know if it had true analog because I know you could use the left stick.
They just the left stick just replaced the D-pad pretty much.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure it was still a binary input.
Yeah, it was.
And
It
you could
was.
and it acted as an extra button to overboost and such.
Yep.
Yes, the L3s and R3s clicking down.
Yep.
Yep.
Ooh,
Yep.
so I think just kind of while we're on the subject, so it's a perfect sort of segue into that Korean interview, just because they do talk a little bit about the control scheme. They bring it up, and one of the things, let me see if I can find my notes on it. But one of the things they talk about is how each of your top buttons, so your triggers and your bumpers, are each going to be tied to a weapon. So rather than having boost
What?
on one
Yeah.
and weapons on the other, all 4 will be on a weapon. So it brings the kind of speculation that you can fire both your backs weapons and your fronts and shoulders, I guess, all at once without
Well,
having to
hold on.
shift.
If I may interject, that might
Yeah.
also be kind of what I was mentioning in previous episodes, where maybe they're going to have a designated input for
For your
like
melee.
your melee means or your shield means. Like I did see that the first half second of having your shield presented, kind of like in the Souls series, where if you time it perfectly, you take reduced stamina reduction, things like that. I mean, that's what I speculate.
Oh, you
Yeah.
know what? We were talking earlier before the show. That's kind of what I was talking about combining heat and energy. Because to be honest, I never found shields to be that useful in Armor Core. I'm glad that they're. I mean,
they're
it's
busted in
cool,
Verdict Day, I'll tell you that.
but I mean, to simplify it and such, like
Yeah.
it'd be very interesting. Like if someone comes and blades you, and you do like basically a perfect parry, in a way.
That would be
Yeah.
nice. That would be nice. Finally, have a defense against the blade, because that's the thing they kind of showcased in 2's intro cinematic. That he did perform like a parry maneuver with the energy shield, but we never got anything like that.
We did not.
Or even like a shield bash that would like stun.
Yeah,
Like
that
that's
just
what I'm
too.
like
hoping
kind of
for too.
maybe just like there's a lot they can do. They're focusing really hard on that, so I'm really excited to see what they came up with. I think that's where the Souls experience is coming in.
Exactly.
game.
They have such a dynamic buffet to pick from as far as functions and things they could incorporate. That's what I'm most excited about, because I'm looking beneath the surface of what they could actually do with it. It's just I mean,
Yeah.
we're all
Yeah, and
can't wait.
It somewhat jumped the gun for any of the listeners who aren't really sure what we're talking about. In that interview, they talk about how I know. So in that interview, they talk about how the first like second or so of deploying a shield has greater energy, and they're not real specific. And again, it's a rough translation. But we think greater defense within that first second or so. But I feel like it does mean either there's 2 types of shields, one that you can kind of manually deploy, and then there's the auto shield that's kind of, on the back shoulder that we talk about. Or you can kind of auto deploy it via like holding down a button, something like that. So maybe it's right before you get hit, you hold it and it'll deploy, as you're being hit, but that timing window is important.
I almost wonder if it might play into that stagger system.
I think it does, definitely.
Yeah,
It has to.
Like if you
Like an
perfect
anti-stagger
block,
property.
Yeah, and I'm sure that'll be an interesting kind of variability you get between shields, right? It's like, oh, this one's super good about blocking, that stagger damage, versus like just, the damage from the attack or things like that.
Or there's another thing too, is you got to remember back in the day too, like when you had metal shields versus that was better against like physical damage, or energy was better against energy damage.
Yeah.
I'm very curious how a defense property is going to work, because we know pile drivers are in the game and such, and those are always hard to use. Good luck hitting anything with that outside of a dead-brained MT or something.
That's fair. There's some very dedicated multiplayer pile people, but it is a struggle.
It's a badge of honor.
It is.
I would like to see. I'm trying to think of how, with modern gameplay, I could see a situation where you have like a, you gotta think there's gonna be more than just obviously one shield in the game and such. There's gonna be a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Maybe they have different parry windows, which would be very much like even heavy shields
Mm.
in their previous games, and different energy uses and such, and maybe even a way to deflect energy. I think that'd be cool. Deflecting an energy attack, you can deflect it back or something.
Yeah, that's one I'd brought up in a previous podcast. Is I'd love if you perfect guard during that window that it blows back damage onto them.
That actually, so I used to play a lot of Titanfall 2, and I was an Ion main. And for those unaware, Ion's like one of his big gimmicks is he has a shield that will absorb bullets, like absorb incoming fire, and then throw them back. If they give me something like that, I'll be very happy.
I would like that.
Yeah.
I love Titanfall. Titanfall, gosh, they need to just do Titanfall 3 someday. It's probably not going to happen, but
Probably not.
That's what we said about Armored Core, though.
I was
Maybe.
gonna say, never say never.
It's
well,
proof.
I'm not going to say never, but I have this thing called lifetime. I can't wait another 13 years for that.
Yeah, that's very true.
I'm just imagining all the elitism, like, oh, the mecha craze is kicking back up again, and all
Dude,
these.
this is going to restart it. Actually,
I
to be
will.
fair,
Sorry, so real quick, it's just gonna be a matter of time until Gundam starts to try and capitalize on all of it again, like they
Gundam
usually
is
do.
they're still releasing Gundam games, mostly on
Yeah.
Steam.
not good ones.
Yeah, they're all mediocre, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
I want Gundam Battle Assault, the fighting game. A Gundam fighting game again. It's perfect.
Here,
Yes.
here, love that.
There was
played-
the Versus games. Those are actually not
Yeah,
too
Gundam
bad.
Versus, yeah.
Yep.
There's a bunch of Gundam used to have. I think Gundam fell down when freaking Gundam Crossfire came out for the PS3. That was. I'd rather like snort the cow's butthole than play that game again. Like, it was not a good game.
Wasn't there like a little mini scandal or something that went on with that one? It's bringing up some old memories. Like, yeah, that one was a big flop for multiple reasons.
It was, well, a lot of it had to do with the cell processor on the PS3 and licensing stuff, which I was kind of like thinking in the back of my mind because I do a lot of stuff with like MechWarrior 5 has come back, BattleTech, aka I play Rogue Tech mod, but a lot of mech stuff has come back, and all those big lawsuits for like MechWarrior and such have finally. It's been years. It has to do with like Macross and all that kind of stuff, and finally it's been settled. So I wonder if there was some stuff in the background that's been kind of delaying Armored Core from ever coming back.
Oh, maybe.
I'm
Wouldn't
sure there's
surprise
been
me.
something because I remember years ago, like in what was it, 2017, 2018, something like that. Someone had asked FromSoft in an interview about the possibility of it coming back, and they gave their usual, canned response of "We would like to," but then they followed it up with "It's not possible right now." So obviously there was something else, in the background keeping it from happening. But whether that be like they just couldn't find publisher funding for it, or maybe there was some legal stuff. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was back in, 2016, 2017, there was, like, a tiny bit of I guess you'd call it a leak. They're like, "Oh, yeah, it's in the works." But everybody just assumed that was, a lie or a false leak.
yeah, or it got scrapped or something
Or it
like
got
that.
scrapped.
I think there is one major thing that Armored Core has going for it that the other, titles don't. And because ultimately, when it comes down to it, is what's going to drive sales? People freaking buying it, and all the other mech titles kind of had like a gimmick to them. Like I forget, I think it was Macross. I think it was where your fighter jet could, grow,
Yep.
deploy its
Yep.
bipedal legs and arms. Gundam was that iconic look. Whereas Armored Core, when it came out, was a fairly, dare I say, kind of generic looking mech. But well, aside from the fact that it's with From Software and it's riding high right now, it can adapt. It isn't stuck to any iconic imagery. I mean, it has some things that it's distinct, but it's not bound by a certain formula
Yeah,
the
there's
other ones have to.
more room.
Yes, they can grow with the times, which I think that's one of the reasons why maybe now, the time is right. It's going to become like an uber dominant class in video games. That's what I'm hoping for.
It is right now when that game comes out. It doesn't even have to be good. They already know fans of Armored Core are gonna love it. Everything I've seen, people love it. And I don't know if you follow I think it's Max Millen. He's a big fighting game streamer and
I don't.
YouTuber. And
Yeah.
Armored Core kind of is a fighting game. I would love there's so much they can do now. Now that they actually have the money to do it. That's kind of the big thing. Going off your
Yeah.
point, is they kind of be rich right now. And anything they could slap their name on a rotten egg and people buy it and say it was good.
But
It's funny you say that because, at least in the competitive scene, there's a huge overlap between AC PvPers and FGC players. There's just I'd say probably at least 75% of people who enjoy PvP and Armored Core also really like fighting games. So
Well, I mean, it really is at the core of it is a fighting game. I mean,
yeah.
Especially in the arena stuff, and that's where I can't wait for them to talk more about that because
It's definitely going to go one of two ways. Either it's barely going to exist and it's just one-on-one versus, which I really doubt. I expect they're holding back something bigger because they're just avoiding the topic altogether.
The way
They're
I
safe.
see it, there's three possible outcomes with the answer that they keep giving of we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. Either one, there's nothing to talk about. Two, there's a lot to talk about. Or three, they can't talk about it because it's gonna be an add-on, it's gonna be DLC that comes later or something like that.
Which
Yeah,
I hate
once-
to say it. You might be right on that last part because look at the industry as of late.
Coliseum once again. Well, may not be what you're referring to there, Phil, but that's one thing I've brought up multiple times. They may bring it as a DLC like Coliseum and Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's possible. I definitely hope it releases with at least just an arena versus kind of thing, but I don't know.
There's really no telling. I mean, they may do something new. They've, as I said, they've kind of learned, what the appeal is with 5's generation versus 4, and those are early, kind of prototype kind of stages. I don't know. I'm super excited, and I can't really, pinpoint one particular path that I think they're going to follow. And I think it's going to be good no matter what it is. And it's going to be really good because FromSoft has a reputation. They have a pedigree now, and I don't think they're going to want to compromise it just for petty gains.
No, I don't think Armored Core for them. Okay, let's think about it this way. If they want to make a game and make a lot of money, do an Elden Rings 2.
Yeah.
And there you go. You have a new game of the year. Armored Core though, it's gonna restart. I really think it's gonna restart the mecha for we should get a lot more mech games. And everyone, just like you see Demon Souls Souls-like clones everywhere. I hope Armored Core becomes that. I hope this thing sells 10 million copies. To not just because everyone here is gonna be buying it and gonna be telling everyone about it because we've been waiting forever for it. But all these new people that have never played Armored Core, the fact that they are excited about it is really good.
Right. Yeah, no more, gone are the days of you telling somebody what you're playing and just what is that?
Yep, I remember that. In the lunch line at high school or
Yeah,
something.
Listen, I'm old now. Hang on, let me look at my driver's license, see how old I am. Yeah, I'm old. Okay.
So with the kind of multiplayer, obviously you can speculate all day, but what is it you guys would hope to see come to the multiplayer? At least for me personally, of course, you want just a basic one-on-one versus arena. I would love to see bigger squad fights. Anywhere from just the one-on-one all the way up to 4v4 world bosses. I think would be super cool. And then I would love to see a more official kind of ranked and unranked ladder system. So you can
Yeah.
see, like, oh, these
Oh,
are the
you're
top
getting into
10.
my wheelhouse now. I'm getting excited.
Like, yes, ladders. Yeah, I'd love to see like, oh, these are the top, in the world. These are the top 20, US players, whatever. And it'd be cool if you get like, I don't know, like a little like badge or something to go along
Yeah.
with that if you can make it into that.
Well, like leaning into like the whole like draw from the fighting game scene, I could see them doing sort of rank system like you see in those, where you start off as wood or bronze or whatever, and you work your way up to different like metals and stuff like that until you get to the top, and then when you get to the top rank, then you start getting assigned your numbers like number 554, all the way up to number 1.
Yeah.
Oh, kind of like an elo level in like
Yeah,
MOBAs.
yeah.
Yeah, I could see something like that happening. I think that'd be a good system to do it.
That'd be a lot better than how they had it in 5th gen, I'll tell you that. 5th gen rank was that was a mess.
I'm gonna shit on the last like couple of armor cores because the multiplayer I don't think was that good. Their netcode, I really hope it's a lot better now. The
Mm-hmm.
netcode was never good. There's a lot of delays. There was a lot of you'd hit something, damage wouldn't be done, even though visually on the client side, your system side, you'd see it. So I hope
Yeah.
that improved a lot. But the thing is, though, is Armor Core's never been about being like any game can be insanely competitive and such. It's does the game have the systems to support that? Which I'm really hoping they talk. Well, I think we might see a trailer here probably this week, maybe, or the week after with Jeff Keighley's stuff.
Yeah,
So,
Game Fest, I think it's the 8th.
He does like bogarting his FromSoft stuff.
Well,
but you gotta remember, they also made this one game called Chrome Hounds. You remember that game?
Yep.
Anyone?
oh yeah,
Ah,
I
yeah.
loved.
Love Chrome Hounds.
Wasn't that the one where you could order that super large? Well, back then, super large, like intricate control panel.
No, that was
No, that
Steel
was
Battalion.
Steel
Steel
Battalion. I was
Battalion,
number
Steel
3 in the
Battalion.
world in that. I'm just saying, the only 2 people above me had Japanese names I could not read. I went and rode my damn bike all the way to a place called Media Play, if anyone even knows what that place is, and I
Yeah.
carried this thing with bungee straps on my freaking bike, and I spent all the monies I made, mowing lawns and stuff, and I set this thing up on a cart table and played on my Xbox. And then Microsoft ruined it by making a Kinect version that was. I missed the foot pedals. Why did I ever spell this thing? Like,
Yeah.
sorry. I'm just like bleeding my heart out. I miss Steel Battalion. So, dude, I like having my eject button. I felt like I was a.
Well,
in a real
the
match.
resurgence, I bet you somebody's going to come back out with it, or maybe they'll, revise it. I don't know who the publisher or
It
the owner of
was
that.
it was a Capcom
Capcom.
game actually,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was
And
What?
Capcom.
Capcom's
Oh,
been
yeah.
bringing a lot of stuff back lately.
Yeah, they have. Wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, it might be maybe AC6, yeah, leads to, Chrome Hounds.
You know what's weird? Chrome Mountains 2 was there was actually like a website with a countdown several years back from
I
because it's owned
remember
by
that.
Microsoft. It's owned by Microsoft. That was a Microsoft only game. And dude, that had one of the best multiplayers. Actually, probably the best multiplayer of any mech game. It was super grounded, and
Mhm.
you had all custom. And it had, you know what? Anyone here play For Honor? By chance, just randomly.
Watch
No,
a lot of
I-
videos, and I get the concepts. Yeah, but I never played it.
The 3 factions. You have to pick your faction before like you do anything. They kind of abandoned that eventually, but that's exactly what Chrome Hounds like for the season. You picked a faction, and there were super weapons on each side. You had the big train thing and all that kind of stuff, and you had to fight back
Mhm.
and do all that kind of stuff. Like, I would love to see something like that in Armor Core. Like,
They
think like
actually
you gotta pick a corporation, and you gotta stick with that corporation for like 6 weeks or something.
Ooh, yeah, have that, and then have the independence along with it.
And you
It's
can only get
always
certain
heavy.
parts through that corporation, just like in Chrome Hounds.
They actually did kind of do that with ACV and Verdict Day. Like the online the online DNA of that took a lot from Chrome Hounds, especially
Yeah.
Verdict Day.
Yeah, I did choosing your factions and
I don't think it was nearly as in depth, like, but yeah, there was definitely a
yeah.
lot of that same DNA carried over.
And
Well,
it's definitely still there as a possibility. I mean, it's always, linked to different corporations and this one probably different specific handlers, things like that. So it's possible that they could throw that in there.
Yeah.
Well, my 2 cents for what it's worth, I'm obviously not as up to par with the PvP experience as you two guys are. Well, three. Ren, you probably have more than I do too. Mine was always more, a more, quote unquote intimate experience with the PvE experience.
Hmm.
What I hope they bring back is something similar to how they did with Nexus. They could do a dual disc. One was, playing the old missions with, the newer, the current engine. So, like, in some way, however they do it, have cooperative play, or maybe like a four team. It's four human players. Some of the old legacy bosses or enemies or missions, something like that. Like maybe some of the precursing battles that led to the fall of Anatolia, like from 4, or
Yeah, that would be interesting.
something like that. Like you could, us, the veteran players, and the new guys come like, hey, we're about to go fight Nine Ball. We're about to go fight this or that. I remember this back on this, in this game and that platform. Really churn up the nostalgia and get people to actually converse over stuff. But that's a small fry. I think that's what I'd like to see.
I love the idea of that. I almost want it as like its own separate thing, right? Released like separately from AC6, but kind of alongside it, being able to go back through all the old kind of games, right? Even if it's with new parts, I think would be super cool. They're just very clearly trying to make like a break from the old games with AC6, so I don't
You
think they'll
really, you
do it.
really think so?
I mean, there's a lot of nostalgia in like the way that they're naming things, some of the things that they're showing for the old players. But I feel like as far as their interviews and things, they're clearly trying to talk about how it doesn't tie in to any of the other games, at all.
yeah,
It's
it's an OG story. It's
yeah,
an
yeah.
original. Like
I, I, I would say, I'd like to interject. They're keeping some of the similar things. Ruins of previous civilizations.
Mhm.
If the first time they mention AI or old relics of AI, it's pretty much going to be the same recipe exactly.
Oh yeah,
I
man. I
would
think the
think.
recipe is the same. I think the way that the game's gonna feel is very much in line with their old stuff. I just don't think they're gonna do any actual like tie-in missions or content to the old games, I guess is
Oh
what I'm
no,
saying.
no, no, no! I wouldn't think so
not at
either.
first.
They never directly did that either. They just have, like, in Nexus, the final mission. When you're the brain chamber, or whatever, that one
Mm.
MT looking thing that can convert itself, kind of like like a
I
Transformers or
hated
whatever.
that
That
thing.
that was Nine Ball. That was Nine
Yep.
Ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they definitely might. I think they're leaning into, call sign Raven and all that. I think they'll
That
throw in
too.
some stuff,
Yeah.
for us old players.
Yeah. I mean, they've never really shied away from references ever.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
always references and callbacks. It's just, yeah, they're
Moonlight's
definitely
proof of
not
that.
going to directly link back. Yeah.
I just don't think that I'm the only one who has a lot of sentiment towards the old callbacks like that, and I
Oh, no,
really don't.
definitely not.
I doubt. I would be very surprised if they completely, forgot or neglected to put that kind of stuff in there. Like the
Yeah, no,
fact
that
they
sort
put
of thing I think they'll do.
The title Raven itself. Oh,
Oh, dude, that when they said it's a Raven versus Hound, which I was like, is that a Chrome Hounds reference in the trailer? Because I'm like, I literally that's the first thing I thought. I was like, oh, they're having Ravens versus Hounds. I'm like, that'd be a great, like, it's like Red versus Blue in Halo or something like that.
That'd
Maybe
be
that's how it is
fantastic.
in multiplayer, Ravens versus Hounds.
Oh, I don't know, if you have listened to any of the old ones, but apparently the hound and dog reference is English specific. The Japanese,
Mhm.
it was just like, "Oh, you work for that, like, famous handler." So that I mean, obviously it's there in, like, the emblems and kind of the symbology is there, but actually calling them, like, dogs and hounds is an English translation specific, it sounds like.
I think I did. So I've only got through the first, second, and mostly through the third one. Didn't watch the fourth or listen to the fourth one, I guess you can say, yet.
Yeah.
So sorry if I'm repeating topics. My bad.
Oh, no, you're good. I think it segues nicely, but yeah, so that would be a lot of fun though. Just bring in references even from other mecha games.
What really struck me though is in their very first interview, they were talking about how you're going to be able to share your designs with other players
Mhm.
and all that.
We've heard that
My
before.
favorite.
Dude,
Yeah, you're right. We have.
I don't think they can't not like fulfill their promises at this point though.
Oh no, I think we're in good hands. But what I want to see is, remember when you could train your own AI AC and bring it
Yeah.
with you? I
Yep.
want that so bad. I want to share that with my friends and get my friends and like.
You're in good company, at least with me and Oz. We're really hoping for that one.
That's
Yep.
my
The
favorite
Unix,
feature.
Unix, and then Silent Lines version. I hope they do a hybrid of the
Silent Line's
two.
my favorite.
Yeah, my favorite too. It was
I
we
actually made
discussed that
it
in detail.
but so I made a. Oh god, I spent, I don't even want to know how many hours I spent on training that AI.
But mine could still probably beat yours.
Dude, what I
Oh,
did,
Little
literally,
friendly
it's
jab.
simple. It's simple. In an arena situation, you get the machine gun arms and you get the double back machine guns, and you have the little core thing with machine gun, and then just get. I
bullet
couldn't
hell.
beat my own AI AC. I couldn't beat it. I kicked my own ass.
Mine was the same, but it was just the handguns. Just get over in the
Oh, the
handguns.
stagger. Frickin',
Yes, and the
I
heat.
hate it.
I couldn't
I'm
beat
just
it. I
sitting
had to
here. It's like
actually,
mid
yeah,
seizure constantly. It's like, yeah, okay,
yeah. I was gonna say I had a hard time beating my own. It was just always stayed above you and just pelted you with those high velocity, high impact, high heat inducing rounds. Yep.
And you know what I think? That's actually good. That's a good point to bring up because they talk about staggering. I wonder if like handgun stuff are gonna have really good stagger chances for quick like follow up melee. I feel like that has to be where they're going with that because it just makes too much sense to me. Like that'd be amazing. And I feel so good because I always felt like that was kind of the thing missing. You really didn't. Did anyone really use the handguns and such like
Not
on
much. I was gonna say
missions?
I like
Oh
Only
the
yeah.
arena.
idea of them.
You did?
Oh, I used them. Yeah, I used every bit. I tried every single different combination. I'm like, I was a very lonely kid growing up, and I was always moving. All I did was Armored Core back when it was, in its high time. So yeah, I play with everything.
I definitely used them PvE. I feel like they really fell off, except for the couple of games, yeah, where the stagger, counts enough to really use them PvE. But otherwise, I think they're outclassed by a lot of the rifles and stuff. So I do hope they kind of bring them into their own in this one.
Ah, that'd be nice.
I was gonna say, there's some videos out there. There's a little bit of, there's a few people out there that they see the virtue of the handguns, and there's one dude I watched and knew him all by name. Like I used to be like that. I've long forgotten them, but no, you know, when you min max, you know the virtue of each platform, and those
Oh
handguns
yeah.
by themselves, they have a I forget the exact word, but there's a tactic for them specifically.
So what do you think? I think with it being, on a newer console and the way that they're starting to release games now, because used to you'd get, your base game essentially, and then you'd get kind of an expanded sequel to that game. I expect that they'll just release maybe patches and kind of in-game expansions at this point.
I think they might follow Capcom's cues that Capcom did with like Monster Hunter. Because it used to be the same way with Monster Hunter before. You'd get the
Yeah.
base game, and then you get the ultimate version with all the G rank stuff.
Yeah, that's my big
Um,
comparison on that one too.
so yeah, I think they're just gonna follow suit with what Capcom did with World, where they finally was, hey, we're finally on these modern systems. Let's kind of modernize this. So I think we'll probably see the base game. We might see probably some little like smaller DLCs. They may or may not be free or whatever.
Yeah.
Like arena update or whatever. But then we'll probably see like a big expansion because they're doing the same thing with Elden Ring now already.
Yeah.
It's like
that's
they
true.
didn't call the new DLC just a DLC. They called it an expansion. And I fully expect it to cost like $40-$50. So, basically
you're
a new
getting
game.
practically, a whole nother full game.
So I think that's the way that they're going to treat it going forward. At least
I'm gonna disagree with you on this. I feel like a lot of what because Armored Core is coming out on last gen systems, PS4 and such. It's not actually a next gen game yet. I'm pretty sure the footage we saw was probably on PC, because usually it is for like every game.
Undoubtedly.
And I'm pretty sure I have a pretty good eye for this. I don't know if they have 120. Like, I'm very curious to how this game looks. It looked like that might even actually been running at even 90, 120 FPS. Granted, they could have had a $7,000 system they're running it on for all we know.
Yeah.
So that's a point of content, because from Software games, when you do something fast paced like a fighting game, like frame rate is key. In this game,
I agree. Yeah.
I could care less about the graphics. Make the frame rate not suck, or make it at least suck less. And that's just kind of one of my fears with just how the industry trend has been going. I'm like, please be good. You've had 13 years.
I've got a fairly decently powerful machine, and I play. Sorry to bring up other games in the podcast here, but I play Ark Survival Evolved, and that's one of the most resource heavy, unoptimized garbage heaps that still keeps people coming in. And I also played Elden Ring, and by comparison, Elden Ring is a much more optimized game, much easier to run, doesn't stress my card out nearly as much. So I imagine that Armored Core will be, using a lot of the same architecture and assets. It's going to be very stable, optimized. And yeah, that's the new thing. Like, developers got to, refresh rates, even for your non hyper competitive games. They're going to want to start to incorporate that because, it does make a difference, and they're always trying to find the new little things like haptic feedback, which is something that not all like I didn't find out like maybe about a year ago that like, oh my gosh, somebody else came out, they discovered something else. Like,
I do hope
there's still depth to this.
I hope they support haptics at least through PC. I'll have to pick up a PS5 controller. That'd be awesome.
That would be.
You know what the weird thing is this game. I'm very curious too. That's actually a very good point, because the PS5 controller. Because I'm gonna be buying this game on both. I'm gonna be buying everywhere because I'm gonna mod the hell out of it somehow. I'm gonna break this damn thing. But I'm very curious, dude. That this game could feel very good with PS5 like haptics and such, and just tension on like a pile driver. Imagine having to hold down the trigger and then you have to let the trigger go to launch the pile driver.
That'd be cool. Or just that sudden like release of pressure as it fires out on your trigger, right?
And as you pull the spike out, if you confirm a hit, makes it feel like you're pulling it through the metal and everything.
Just like in the trailer.
That'd be pretty. Yep. That'd be pretty freaking cool.
And there's a weird so I'll say this outside. We'll circle back to this later. I don't want to like say anything that I'm not 100% confident on, but there is this thing called PSVR 2 out there. I'm very curious about a VR Armored Core game, and they have dev kits for that. So I don't think that we're getting it this year or next year. There's a lot of experimental stuff, but I can just, because we haven't seen like a first-person view yet.
Yes, we have.
Oh, they
Silent
did?
Line had it as an
option. No, I'm talking about. I'm sorry, I meant the newest
one. With specifically, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And I want that. And the fact that I'm thinking back to like Ace Combat, how damn good Ace Combat is in PSVR 1. It is.
Oh, I bet.
Amazingly good. Like it is like
there is a little cult outcry for bringing back first person view in Armored Core. So I think that's going to be very fertile for at least the modder community, and then may incorporate it at an official level if it gets enough attention. Who knows? I haven't seen that too often with FromSoft, but
I think they're going to stick to third person for most, because the way the action is, people want to see. The biggest problem I have with like customization in video games is, take something like Battlefield. Oh, you customize your character, but you're in first person. You never see your own guy unless you're dead. Like a better example would be like something like Warframe, where you can buy color palettes, and they were really talking like you can really customize these mechs. I think I'm gonna have to see some eye bleeding mechs out there in the future. Like,
oh yeah, I'm sure.
Turquoise and like.
Oh yeah, and they said you could start
orange.
to adjust your luster levels and stuff too. So yeah, I'm waiting for just hot pink, super reflective.
I'm gonna make them Tower of Latria monk one that's like yellow. It stings the eyes. I remember that from the item descripts. It stings the eyes.
Your biggest weapon is your paint. It
That's
burns
right.
the eyes out of your opponents.
Hey,
I'm
that
blinded by your greatness. Ah, praise the sun. I had to get one of those in there.
You put salt armor and just blind the person.
Oh, dude, that would be a cool shield. A shield that like literally does like a solar flare, like from Krillin from Dragon Ball. It just blinds your opponent for a few seconds. That'd be a cool. I mean, that'd be badass. I would take
They-
that.
They've had
think it would be.
extensions that tried that.
Yeah, and we had flares and stuff too. I think they've experimented a little bit with it. It would be cool to put it on something like assault armor and change kind of the aspects of what that does. Like, okay, this one, does damage. This one staggers. This one like flares and knocks lock off or lock on off for a second.
Yeah, they had radar jammers, and I think 4 introduced like
Oh, I used to stealth.
a camera blinder. They had one. The
Yep.
title that the intro animation AC, that Ray Leonard craft from 4, its extensions, those were
The little
flashers.
triangle wings. What's it? The triangle wing things that were stealth. They
Well,
were
yeah,
like
I think it was.
I could draw it. I could
I think it
literally
was
draw it.
number 2, and its expansions had the like double back weapon too that would just stealth you and like drop lock offs.
Silent Line, I think, introduced the extensions. The title
Actually,
card,
yes.
animate
Now these
the
ones,
It's
these
literally
were.
on the front. I have the box.
Yeah,
nice.
it was a crest machine, and he had the Karasawa, but he had the light legs. Yeah, that was the first of
Now, is it?
FCS. That was an actual FCS jammer.
Yep, it would fuck up. So yeah. Oh, sorry. Pardon my language. It would it would mess up your fire control system. So you couldn't you just couldn't
Yeah.
shoot anything.
Those little triangular trellis frame looking things.
Yes. We're thinking the same thing. I love those things because I use them against my brother all the time, and he hated me for it. And he unplugged my controller one time. Just
That bastard.
It was back in split screen days, and when that was a thing.
So one thing I kind of hope, from a, I guess, design perspective, as much as I liked 5, and as much as it felt like heavy and gritty and all that, one, it was very, very muted. So I hope that this one's a little bit more colorful and vibrant, I guess. But just your screen and the sound effects that they had constantly going off. So as warnings and like it's beeping for both being close to the edge of the area and your boosters and your hit and your staggered, and it's just all like beeps and stuff flying across your monitor. It's sensory overload, I feel like, in 5.
I want
Yeah.
widescreen. I want widescreen support because I've got a 3440 by 1440, and Elden Ring can't do that. So I really hope they do that.
I have an ultra wide as well.
I just have a TV, so
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, my monitor's not really ultra wide or anything, so it probably doesn't really matter for me, at least not yet. But I'd probably buy a new monitor, if it's good enough.
Oh yeah, I saved up working at a damn Subway to get the 60 gig PS3 when Armored Core 4 was coming out. Like that was the only reason I was getting the PS3, and then later on got one of the first 1920, 1080p ones.
Yeah.
Is it an Asus one? Oh, sorry. I started talking about monitor. My bad.
No, it was a
no.
Samsung TV. I remember that. I still got it. It still works. It's a bit, stained in now. What's it called? Burned in a little bit, but yeah, it works.
So maybe back on the topic of not really multiplayer, I guess, but kind of expansions and stuff going forward. For me, this game has a lot of crossover, like you were saying, Ark, with Monster Hunter, which is my other kind of major series that I play. And it feels to me like Monster Hunter World, right? They revamp all the systems, they bring it back, when the publisher is kind of at its height. And then it's the same. Everybody went from having no idea what this little like Japanese cult game was to it being one of, if not like the best selling single games that they have.
Better Pokemon. That's what I call it.
Yeah, yeah.
Nintendo's now gonna assassinate me.
Probably. Yeah, I'll be, they'll take down the podcast, they'll assassinate you, they'll
But who's Philaroni? No, this guy doesn't exist.
wipe you from the internet. Yep.
And they do that. Anyway, I can do.
Yeah. I was gonna say, what do you think about crossovers? So World did Behemoth and Final Fantasy. Do you think
That's
there's room
true.
in this one to bring things in like, oh, this is, the Gundam anime, and if you beat it, you unlock its parts. This is, the Macross,
It
like
wouldn't
little
be unheard
transforming
of
part.
because, like, go ahead.
I was gonna say because so Namco Bandai is the one publishing this, correct?
Yep.
I was
Yeah.
about to say that
They
they
also
have the
have
rights.
Gundam,
Oh
They
yeah,
have
the Gundam
they have the
crossover
rights.
and
is
on
right.
top of that, Sony owns Crunchyroll now, so they own like broadcasting rights stuff
Mm,
to like all the Gundam everything. And dude, just give me the OG beam rifle from the original Gundam that I can put on my mech.
yeah.
That would be awesome. Yeah, exactly. Granted,
They're actually
Karasan's still better. Or how do you say it? Karasan?
Karasawa.
Karasawa? So like
Karasawa.
I would call it the Karasan. The Karasawa and the Moonlight Blade are like my two long lost lovers.
We decided that's the one guarantee is this game will have both of those weapons because it has to.
yeah.
It
Well,
has to.
maybe they might be called something different because like 4th gen had the Canopus, not the Karasawa. They had the Canopus.
But they kept the Moonlight. The Moonlight will stay the same. That's the one
Well,
thing
that's a given, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's iconic to
That
FromSoft.
is, yeah, that is literally like the battle rifle of Halo. Is
Yeah.
to what this to Armored Core is the Moonlight Blade.
But yeah, no, there actually definitely is some precedent for crossovers and stuff like that because FromSoft did the Ace series, the Another Century's episode, which
Yep.
is just a whole. That's just crossovers the game. So
They
Yeah,
had
yeah,
they
that's
had
fair.
Nine Ball Seraph in it.
yep. So
Yeah, could definitely do it like that. And we have a company confirmed making model kits for it too, which is the obvious, crossover into the Gundam realm of stuff.
yeah, I think it's Kotobukiya again, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
If
'Cause
I
they
recall,
handled.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just say they handled like all the previous AC models.
I used to, back then I tried to like scale to scale. I think ACs have almost always been larger than Gundams. Gundams are freaking huge, but I think ACs were bigger. Fives, ACs were I think smaller than the previous titles though.
Yeah, there were.
I wonder
I
how.
think,
Yeah.
5
I think
meters.
that honestly, I think that was just the scaling. I think I actually specifically remembering that I felt like the ACs felt smaller. They didn't feel like big in that game compared to the environment.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a YouTube video somewhere that goes through this on that the ACs actually rarely change that much throughout like the entirety of the series, but the background and like building scaling just changes wildly from game to game.
But FromSoft has never, at least in AC, they've never had a good sense of scale. Because you'll have a Jeep or like a research convoy that comes up to your AC's knee, but then you go by a building and the window is like the size of the little eye camera on your head. So, these Jeeps must be the size of 5 apartments.
Well, some APCs can get like that, but I definitely agree with what y'all are saying there. And I'm still just thinking like some like kind of mission or something like that. Find this unidentified, vessel of some sort, and it ends up being the Trojan horse, and then RX-78 starts walking out and something like that with the
Yeah.
crossovers. That'd
Yeah, I
be
could
pretty
definitely see
cool.
something like
Trying to think of what for crossover stuff. What we suddenly could bring back. It's so hard because it's such an old franchise now.
it is, and I feel like a lot of your crossover stuff tends to be with games that are kind of concurrently running.
Dude, I
Um,
honestly, I still say Ace Combat makes sense. Just get in Mobius 1 from Ace Combat 4, have come in and like do an airstrike to save your butt in a mission or something. Because there was air support, like you could actually hire air support and other stuff in the previous Armored Core games. So it wouldn't be too out of the world of possibility.
Yeah.
Or like
I
the
mean-
little,
I mean, you could
like
do
little. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the like Zone of Enders crossover, could work. You have like a little assault armor
Oh
weapon.
man,
But it's attached to your hand instead, so you just form the sphere and like throw it out.
that's too deep right there. Oh man, getting
Probably
Zona
it's never.
Enders mixed up in
That's
this.
not
never gonna
happening. Not
happen.
with
But
Kojima, and not with Konami, not with that
Yeah.
divorce.
I don't
Yeah.
even know if Konami's gonna play nice with anyone these days.
Yeah, I was about to say they're a little bit of rivalry thing going on over there. If y'all haven't noticed.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's been that way
Yeah.
for. Well, it's because Konami, they got a new CEO, and they really focused on. A lot of people know this. They make a lot of bottled water, the pachinko machines. The first
Yep.
thing you do if you fly from where I am to Vegas, there's a Konami building there. Literally as you land, I was like, really? And yeah, because they make gambling machines and such, and that's
Mm.
they just make
Mhm.
they make a lot of money, low effort.
that's the downfall that happens, that we release AC6 and it's actually just a gotcha game, and you complete your mission and it drops a loot crate, and you have to roll for weapons.
I mean,
If that happens, I will fly my
Oh,
I
I will buy a glove and write "bitch slap glove" on it, and then we'll fly over there to Japan
Right?
myself.
I will build a mech and fly over with the mech. Just like White Glint with the rocket boosters. I'll be like, come here, get over here! And I'll have Scorpion on my arm, and he'll pull the enemies to me. I'll be like, what have you done to my game?
There's just zero chance of that happening, but
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
so
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
I think Bandai Namco is a bit past that phase. I mean, there was a
Yeah.
Oh,
phase where that would absolutely. They had a phase a couple of years ago where that was absolutely possible. They like every IP that Bandai Namco had a free to play where you had all your free to play gimmicks, your stamina system, and well, buy crystals to play more.
Well,
And
that's
then
where a lot of the Gundam games are at right now.
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
As much as I tried, was it the Gun Battle Assault, whatever game they just I play a little bit. It's a hero shooter basically, which I'm not gonna lie, Gundam really lends itself well into that because you have a character behind the mech and the mechs themselves are characters. Where this
Yeah.
is going back to Armored Core more, it's what it's more like Sims in a way. It's like you kind of create your own character, your own story,
Mhm.
and you approach problems your very specific way.
Hmm.
I think that if anybody started going towards that direction, even though Miyazaki's not helming this, they'd get a phone call from me like, "What are you doing to my baby? What are you doing?"
They have
You
talked
know?
about that was another thing that they brought up sort of in that interview, like just really briefly, was they talked about how you are definitely still a silent protagonist and how being a human plus is kind of their explanation for
Oh
it, that'll
yes.
play into the storyline of like why you just don't talk to people is
Mhm.
because of all your cybernetics.
See, in Mech Warrior, that's called DNI or basically direct neural interface.
Mm.
In Gundam, like a lot of mech stuff has that too, but it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
just mech
New
stuff.
types
But
and
yeah, yeah, exactly. Basically, human plot. The whole. I remember that. I remember that scene from was it Armor Core 2, where when you beat the game, you get the human plot. You get the augments for that, and
OP and optional intensify was in 3, and
oh
I
no,
think they used
OP intensify, OP infinity, or and I call okay. First off, I call it I know it's OP intensify, but I like to call it OP infinity because OP infinity, overpowered infinity, would be a great band name, and it needs to happen.
I think there's actually some bands out there. There's Frequency, but there's another one. I think OP Intensify. Somebody did use something with that, but I don't think it. No offense to them, it's not very big.
that's the question to us. We'll get really similar music and they'll bring back like frequency or something
Oh,
like
that's
that.
that's
I'm sure
another
they
thing.
will.
Right.
There's one music creator.
Oh,
It's SHE. She. There's one track that I've like been fantasizing like the Raven test with that. It's
Mm,
Be All Right. It's that track. Be All Right. It's hard
I'll
to
have to check that
find.
one out.
It's on Spotify, but it's S.H.E. And it's Be All Right.
Mm,
It would
I'll
perfectly
check it out.
choreograph into a Raven test. But I hope they do
dude,
that. I hope they do
that'd
stuff like
be.
that. Bring it. Yeah. Like, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Dude, I'm just like grilled to my mind Armor Core 2 since I'm looking at the box right now. And I got my Armor Core Nexus one. Both this still. And I have the little memory card slot. I forgot that was a thing in the game cases back then.
Yep.
Yeah. That's back when game cases came with instruction books.
That
Yeah.
too.
Dude, do I have hang on, I got checked. Do I have any notes? I might have notes. I just knocked something over. Because there used to be a note sec. Yeah, setup warranty.
Yeah, they always had the little note section in the back.
Yep.
Little promo plaque for upcoming titles.
To write down
miss
cheat
all that.
codes. Oh, this doesn't have. Okay.
I think I hope that maybe they could do something like they did at the end of Doom. What was the one that came afterwards? The revision and then the other one, Doom Eternal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Where
Eternal,
at
I
the
think.
very end he says one word and it's no.
They could do something like that.
Something like that. But yeah, the silent protagonist, another, I think, fan. What's the term called again? Fan service,
Oh,
keeping him as a
self-insert?
silent protagonist.
Like a self-insert?
Yeah, self-insert, I think is a good.
Oh, to where like you view yourself as the protagonist.
Yeah. And it's always kind of been that way. You kind of you try to put yourself because it's it's so customized and it's like, oh, this is your mech, your machine. So I think they try to make sure it's you as the pilot as opposed to
Yeah. Well,
whoever.
it's like Armored Core is kind of like a racing game in a way. There's no really characters in racing games.
Yeah, that's why there's no eject button in Armored Core. You just die like men.
Initial
the
D.
character is the mech is the character at the end of the day, and how you make that character. What I would like to see though, I don't think this is gonna happen, but just going from the trailers, because I've been a sucker for this for a long time. It's just there's some games that have done it, most never do. Changing the voice of the person that's talking to you.
Yeah,
Like,
that'd be cool.
Have like an AI voice, a female voice, male voice, like or like just some old dude that's just like a
That's
prick.
the
I guess
that's
I
where
don't
they
know.
make
Like,
their money. Instead of buying skins, it's you buy William Shatner as your handler.
oh man.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
like, they didn't have like for your handler, but like the 5th gen games, you could change your CPU voice.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah,
And they
And
had
the HUD.
DLCs for that too.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's stuff I just like to see come back.
they should do that for sure. They should do. It'd be cool at least in multiplayer if you could change kind of your background track as well. So it's not level locked. It's just kind of whatever you want on in the background would be cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny you say that because like anyone who got like deep into 5th gen, like eventually at some point just turn the music off.
Right.
Because 5th gen, when you're playing a match, it has this awful I don't want to call it a mechanic, but it doesn't matter if it's like a 1v1 duel or if it's a conquest 4v4. As soon as anyone in the match goes into the red, the music instantly flips from whatever was playing to a track called On the Corner, and it's not a good song. It's a bunch of noise, but like it did that like as soon as someone died, as soon as someone went into the red, which in a 4v4 match can happen within like 5 seconds. So
Yeah.
like you don't get to hear the soundtrack, you just get to hear this one song that's maybe a 20-second loop of
grinding on your
random
ears just over and over and
dissonance
over.
and discord.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
That's fair.
Give me Vietnam flashbacks now. I'm sorry to remember that, like, because when one person would get a kill, or like it would just be constant. It would be nonstop.
Yep.
Oh man, that's that's something they don't need to do. They need to not do that again.
Yeah,
No,
5 just
I'd be
had a
fine
lot
with-
of like both auditory and visual kind of noise in the way that they set it up.
Yeah, that's very true.
So yeah, maybe we'll get something a little sleeker, and yeah, they'll do away with the the corner track.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd be all for like a custom, maybe not a custom BGM, like you can just import your own stuff because there are games that do that.
Oh,
There are.
But like something just letting you pick.
That's what I was thinking.
a
It's a
track, yeah.
set of 20
dude,
tracks
you
or
just
whatever.
gave me the greatest idea. This is for multiplayer.
Mhm.
I want when I build my mech and I go into a fight, I want the option to have like all the previous music, like little snippets, like 10, 15 seconds, and it's like my theme music,
Oh, you got
like
like an intro track?
WWE. Yes, like
Yeah.
WWE, and I walk in with my mech against like on a 1v1 or something. Oh, that'd be so good. That's a lot
That
of
would be
work
cool
though.
if there's like a little 5-10 second like intro of every player, and you get like your pose set, your intro music.
Yeah, I mean, it probably wouldn't be that hard to do either. It's as long as because if they give you something like just some sort of posing tool, like I can't remember if you could do it in other games, but I know in fifth gen you could in your garage you could enter
Yeah. Yeah,
like
that's
a
what I was
camera
thinking about.
state where you could
Yep.
enter different poses. So if you could do that and just take a snapshot, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that would be a lot of fun. I mean, that's half the like point of multiplayer too, right? Is to like show off your paint, your emblem, your AC in general
Mhm.
before you get murked by the person. So I think it would be just
Yeah.
a fun little extra step they could throw in there.
As long as I don't want to see mechs teabagging each other though.
Oh god.
That's
I
someone
put a
will
crouch
try
button on there.
the reserve joint legs.
Yeah,
So the
just
big
jumping
jump,
up and down.
jump right off your
I
face. You're like, I'm out of here.
I may or may not have done that in Verdict 8 once or twice. Because
You terrible person. Just kidding.
well, because I mean, it's not really like a crouch or a teabag, but if you initiated your glide boost without moving, your
Mhm.
AC would sort of like squat and take a pose like it's getting ready to take off. Um, so it definitely kind of sort of exists. It's just awkward and hard to do, and you can't really spam it.
Worth it.
Yeah. Best you got is just dropping your weapons on them. Just walking over to the corpse and purging everything.
Gosh, I forgot that. I forgot that was a thing too. Jeez, I actually forgot that you could drop. I actually did that because did you have to hold all 4 top buttons and push like triangle and circle to drop that specific weapon to
Yeah.
to
Yeah, I
equip
mean,
or
they always
something like
have to
that?
make it complicated so you don't just like accidentally purge
I
off.
did it. I accidentally did it a lot. Like
I mean,
I'll be like in a mission. I'm like drop my. I'm like crap. I have no guns anymore.
yeah. I mean, it was actually pretty easy to do in fifth gen. All you had to do is there was a button for it. Mine was like down on the D-pad, so you just press down and then the corresponding button, and it just throws the weapon away. Which is real fun because the DualShock 3, when it started having issues, that was one of the first things that got automatic inputs. Was just your D button or your D pads automatically inputting, and you
Oh
accidentally
no.
dropped your weapons because your controller sucks.
Or it's realistic. It's like in horror movies where someone always trips and falls at the worst moment.
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing I didn't even think about is having it where you can get knocked off center and go prone for a little bit. That's something that would be interesting. They could easily use the mechanics or learn from what they did with the Soul series.
Yeah,
I
it'd
think that's
be
what the stun mechanic's going to be. It's going to be a combination of that. That feels right to me. Like you just get stunned and maybe like you're the way I would do it is I don't know how they're going to do the stun factor. They're making a very big point of that since that's the first things they talked about in melee
yeah.
weapons being more like once you're stunned, like you're basically immobilized. And this is I think of like Street Fighter Sons, Marvel's Capcom, more like all that kind of game. Like you're stunned, you're basically your defenses are down. Like maybe it jacks up your energy or slows your energy recovery and jacks up your heat, or it just does it like you're not cooling off, you're not regaining energy, you're really just kind of locked into place for a second.
Something
Yeah.
that's I've just now been able to kind of put my finger on throughout all of the Soul series. They've always made a big point about the poise system and saying it's going to be different. 2 really changed it up, and then 3 they kind of sort of took it away but gave hyper armor during certain weapon animations and things like that. So I guess that's one thing I would say I'm a bit concerned about is this, all this attention they're putting on, poise break and things like that, borrowing from,
Sekiro.
gosh, Sekiro. Thank you very much. That's exactly what I was thinking about there. I think that may be just more the same. It's just a different balancing and way that the whole poise system works. But maybe a little bit extra flair to do something else that hasn't been done before. But
Yeah.
I don't
They do
know.
have to
I'm
do it,
a
but you
little
can't just be
iffy on
like
that.
stun locked on it though. So like, oh, I broke their poise, and I'm just like hammering them with rockets and blades, and they just can't move. They'll have to make sure that that's
Or
not a thing.
or you have tank legs. Maybe you can't be stunned with tank legs.
Oh, that'd
Maybe
be
that's some of
interesting.
the advantages. Because they were really hardcore about. They showed off what tank legs, the quad legs, the hover capability. I
Yeah,
don't think they haven't showed off hover legs yet. I'm very curious about that. Granted, I never really
yeah,
liked
they
them too
haven't.
much, but they have a lot. But if they did say they wanted to really change the gameplay depending on your legs, and
Yeah,
that's great. I think that would be really fun to see. Depending, I mean, it does depend how it works, but because if you're an ultra light mech and you get hit by a cannon, you should be knocked on your ass. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
Like that should
yeah,
be
Yeah.
for sure.
that would deserve to get knocked prone. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting if it's different depending on what leg types you have, recover differently from that.
Yeah.
Might be
I
something
know,
to do.
like, I think the one thing that stuck out to me when they were talking about that in the interviews is they mentioned that it would affect the attitude control stat, which,
Mm.
if memory serves, in previous games is sort of the stat that like affects your maneuverability in air, uh, like how well
Mm.
you can control.
You mean stability?
yeah.
Are you talking about
Stability's
like from
kind of did that
force?
ish.
The like the little you talk about like four answers, little things you can little add on to balance it out and change the
I think something like that will
Talk
play a
Maybe
about
role, but
tuning.
I think it just like the
no.
altitude control of
'Cause I know, like in fifth gen, the stat,
stabilizers. Yeah.
yeah, but I know, like in fifth gen, there was a stat called attitude control, which, as far as I remember, determined like your sort of like float time, how much time you had to hover. Because like quads just had a ton of it,
quads
so
had
they
a
just
ton.
floated forever.
Oh, that makes
Um,
sense from the trailer we've
Yeah,
all saw. Because
Yeah.
literally quads are because they have more boosters. They literally have more
Yeah.
boosters.
so I'm wondering if the stagger basically, um,
Oh, would
since they
affect that.
mentioned, yeah, since they mentioned that it sort of affects that stat. If it, like, if you're airborne, it knocks you out of the sky. If you're not airborne, it probably just sort of like is a hard stagger, but then you recover real fast.
that'd be interesting. So that could be play a lot into kind of map design too, right? Because they did talk about the verticality. So if you do have verses on places that actually have pits or heavy drops, or if you fall long enough, or you're staggered, so your boosters don't activate. If you actually hit the ground and take damage from that.
Oh, remember this too. You guys got to correct me here if I'm wrong, but with like the reserve joint legs, because they have the biggest jump height, the initial jump and then boost, you could used to love playing with those. But when you
Yeah,
landed though, it'd be interesting to see like I think that's kind of what Ark's going at here is like being shot in those situations. Like how does a tank leg, for example, or I guess do you even call it a leg?
that's
Let's just call it a
Yeah.
Toyota. They just plot the mech on a Toyota and said ship it. Um, like if do you get a stun? Like if if you fall from a really high height. Now let's say you're boosting and everything, and you get shot, and you get staggered, and you fall and you hit hard. You get like a I guess the fighting game equivalent be like a wall bounce type of thing, or a hard knockdown, soft knockdown type of thing.
that'd be
Is that what
interesting.
you're going for?
Kind of, yeah. Like it's just like I again, we don't really know anything until they show us actual like in-game gameplay or say it in an interview. But I'm just wondering if the stagger system would have anything to do, like, would be affected by your altitude. So like if, like I said, if you're airborne and you get staggered, it's going to be much more severe than if you're sitting on ground and you get staggered.
Yeah. No, I
That would
think I would
make
like to see that.
sense. I like to see that because tank obviously. How is the tank leg guy going to get staggered? He's in a freaking tank basically, you know. But the guy that's really high, like if you throw a rock at a tank, you throw a rock at a bird. Let's say you hit the bird, I'm pretty sure the bird's gonna go down. But you hit the tank, it's gonna be like, "Would you just throw at me? I'm gonna shoot back now."
Yeah, tank legs have always been treated a little bit differently to try and, to compensate for their obvious lack of mobility. So
Mhm.
yeah,
A lot
there's
of armor
there's new
defense.
perks. And not to use the word as like a crutch, but more stable, more stability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that could be a whole new stat, like well, not new, but
Yeah, I think they'll take various iterations of that stat and kind of lump them together.
man, I'm a huge quad leg fan. I like the floating stuff, but I like my favorite thing about quad legs is the skidding side to side.
Mm.
The ground based mobility has always been
Well, maybe tanks will be your new favorite with drifting around then.
okay. Okay. This is a promise. When this game comes out, I'm gonna make a tank mech, and I'm gonna name it after my Subaru, which is just called Subaru, and it's gonna be white, black, and gold because that's what my car is. And I'm
Nice.
gonna remake my car as a tank because it can go through anything.
Figured I'd paint mine like the car from Initial D, right? The Panda Trano, just drifting around everywhere.
Oh, that's another thing too. Um, the drifting, like they definitely said like yeah, tanks can drift. I guess that's probably kind of their dodge mechanic. Instead, I'm very curious to see more of that.
Yeah, I would like to see, like, one thing I am hoping is sometime before launch they actually do give us a uh a big sort of rundown of like actual in-game, like, here's a mock match,
Yeah.
a just a even if it's just pre-recorded and all scripted or whatever, just something that actually is in game, because the gameplay trailer doesn't have a HUD, doesn't have like the camera's not locked to where it would be in gameplay, I'm assuming.
That's
If
a
that's
big
what the
topic
camera,
of
Um,
yeah,
speculation. Yeah, big topic of speculation on that one.
that I agree. Yeah, that is Anyway, continue like that. I'm just in agreement.
I would like to see. I don't think they're going to do it, but I know back when they were getting ready to launch Verdict Day, they had, what was it, like 5 or 6 streams. They did one like every week, or maybe it was every other week, where they just got the devs, like the three main devs, the producer, director, maybe, and someone from like the art team, whatever they were talking about that week, sat down in front of the camera and just gave a just like half hour to 45 minute just long speech on, here we're going to talk about this aspect of the game and what we're changing and what's new. So I would like to see them try and do that again, but obviously, you know, they
That'd be nice.
probably don't have the time or resources to
Oh, they do.
spend on that.
Monster Hunter is usually really good about that too. They'll have, dev chats, especially leading up to a big release or a big update. I'm talking about, just the like nitty-gritty mechanical changes, or this is how we're shifting this
Yeah.
weapon, this is what you can do now.
At the very least, I think they'll showcase some of the in-game mechanics, and hopefully, I don't know, give like a little, example of the HUD and everything. Because I don't know if they're just gonna like splash everybody into, actually buying the game, and that's the first glimpse of the HUD we'll get.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
need to
know.
see my ammo and such. I think honestly, I think what they were doing, because I can tell that it's gameplay. There's it was edited, yes,
Mhm.
but maybe it could be cutscenes, like a little cutscenes, from boss fights and that kind of stuff. And I think there's a little bit of cinematics maybe in the single player side of things, where you do a cool takedown, and there's maybe different ways your blade works, and the energy lance thing was cool. I think that's why they very heavily separated the single player and multiplayer side in their interviews, is because when they talk about the multiplayer side, they're like, yes, there will be multiplayer. Like they're very aware that people want that, but what's gonna look like, that's a whole different beast. And I know that just sadly from experience. I'm really, how do I explain this? I want them to just do a big, like you say, do a big teardown of like the multiplayer and such. I think they're gonna do that because this game's not getting delayed. They've
Yeah.
pretty much beaten every game in the industry in terms of actually keeping their schedule and such. They will show off something here very soon because the game's not launched. It's not too long till it comes out. When they do a multiplayer breakdown, man, how would they? It's so weird because it's like I'm thinking like FromSoft for multiplayer just doesn't click my brain anymore. But
That's fair.
they're very aware. Like I feel like the developers they're being very smart about everything and how they release information and when they do and keeping the
Mhm.
hype up.
Yeah, they'll at least like, this
Yeah.
one screenshot, solely on Twitter, and everybody's zooming in and speculating.
Oh
And
yeah, and they've also done more interviews than like any other game company in the industry this year. So
You mentioned the streamer Maximilian Dude earlier.
Yep.
He actually, when they unveiled the gameplay trailer, he actually said on his following stream where he was going through and like reacting and analyzing it, he actually made a comment of, "Oh, I might get to play that next month," and so
he
that
will.
because like that's been, I don't know if anybody else. I mean, I'm sure other people have realized it, but like that's kind of been Bandai Namco's sort of big marketing ploy since Dark Souls 3. At least as far as like FromSoft games go, where they will fly big name streamers out to, a castle or wherever to sit down, play the game, play like, like invasions or arena or
Yeah.
whatever, and then have those streamers record it and then use that recorded footage for a trailer. So you might be onto something there. That might
No,
be what's going
I know
on.
I am because he already, dude. The guy has a straight face. I I didn't want to bring this up. I don't think this is that possible. I highly doubt it. But since Sony owns Evo now, the biggest fighting game thing that's coming up here soon.
I forgot about that.
And yeah, a lot of people forget that they own Evo, which I sometimes forget too. But he knew like Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which is my favorite fighting game ever. Well, tied with two of them. But he knew, and the hour-long stream. He's like, yeah, guys. After it was announced, he's like, yeah, I knew this about this for months. The guy's like a multi-millionaire. Like he probably knows shit, and it's gonna get invited out because him playing the game, because it is very fighting. If you saw his reactions to it, he was just like, "Oh yeah, I am on board with this."
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I feel like that's a pretty common release tactic lately too, is to bring in major streamers, content creators, things like that, and either just give them an early copy or to fly them out somewhere.
yeah, it's modern day advertising for video games.
Yep.
This is how it is.
Super cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it is, and it's
Mhm.
not gonna pick on my former employer at all, but certain things like that have had happened in the past and it's super backfired, but
Mm.
not gonna be an issue of him and this game. He's gonna pick this game down to the frickin' detail when it comes up. Like when he gets the release and he can actually start talking about, because you do have to sign NDAs in that industry or
Yeah.
my
Mhm.
industry even. But you want to talk about things you can't, and I have to. I know the feeling. I want to say things, but I can't. But there is honestly, in a weird segue here, since we were kind of talking about multiplayer stuff, a 1v, like, think fighting games. Armored Core is literally listed as a fighting game anywhere you look. That's what one of the tags is a fighting game. It would be awesome to see a competitive yearly tournament fighting game that's mecha based.
I would
Because
love that.
what, dude, I think a lot of people would. It would create a whole, especially if it's successful. That's the thing. And I think
Yeah.
Armored Core is going to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I think the possibility is definitely there to make a real multiplayer scene with it, like a lot of the fighting games.
Yeah.
the clones are going to have to take off and be successful because you got to have a bit of variety with that. Otherwise, it's just rather than just a mecha tournament, it's an Armored Core tournament.
No, it's gonna be just who is the most armored core? That's what I would like tagline as. Who? Oh, that'd be brilliant. I love to see that because it doesn't exist right now. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, Armored Core is in a free market. Who's competing against you? Oh, that's right. Let me check my watch calendar. Oh, that's right. Let me get my actually get my 13 calendars. That's right. No one has been competing in this market.
I feel like more than a lot of older games, Armored Core has held this like core fan base for 10 years now, and multiplayer is a big aspect of that, of course. So I feel like they really should lean into that to kind of satisfy all the players that have just been hanging out with the series.
Yeah, well, it's especially true in like Japan, like their local market. Like one of the reasons that like ACV and Verdict Day are so big in Japan is specifically because of the multiplayer focus. You know, it's a social game. You know, so you get a guy and his friend get into the game, and then they'll get their friends into the game. Oh, you got to come play this game with us, and those friends will get their friends into the game. You know, and then because it's I don't want to like generalize, but I feel like the Japanese market is very keen to like social gaming, whereas
Yeah,
like yeah, they'll
Yeah,
play their single player games and everything like that, but they will take your social games and eat them up.
it's true.
So
Well, that's why Monster Hunter's huge there, right? Is because
oh,
it's
absolutely,
I was gonna
yeah.
say
squads of four.
Splatoon is another
Oh
game
yeah,
too
yeah.
that a game I've actually never played, but I see the concept, I understand it and such, and there's clones of it coming out. But I mean, it's one of those things like Armored Core and From Software have the opportunity once again to set a new industry trend and have everyone chase their tail, just like they did with the Demon Souls. And I guess I should say Dark Souls, but most people know it for Demon Souls because that kind of
Yeah,
is
yeah, but
what
ever
really
since then,
started.
yeah, your Souls likes have been coming out. They created, what
Dude,
is
they
basically a
created
genre.
an industry. Yeah, they created an industry term. Like you got Souls likes.
And I want to say it was Miyazaki's brainchild that he had to kind of trick from Soft
Yeah,
into letting him put out there. It really was him, and I kind of just to really to put it out there. From Soft right now, they recognize Miyazaki for what it is. I mean, they made him creative director, or something like that. I mean, somebody correct me, but he went from not the top, but now he is like nearly at the top when it
He's
comes to.
company
Uh,
president.
yeah, they
Yeah.
recognized him that he
Wait,
took a
what?
chance. He took. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's funny. You said when you said nearly at the top, he's like, yeah, he's the president. I'm like, what's about president? I was about to say like, I don't know, beer or
Chair.
something. I
Well,
don't
it's kind of
know.
that
The
they
shareholders, the
company
shareholders are
curate.
what's above the president.
Yeah, that is true.
That's
That
it.
is true. Or in the board of board members and such.
yeah,
But
they recognized that he took a chance and they rewarded it, and obviously he brought home the bacon, and I just want to if anything, like my closing thoughts on it. I really would like to think that FromSoft has kind of taken to heart, embodied Miyazaki's, visions on some things, and they're doing it, all of this for more than just the competitive aspect of it, staying in the market. I think they're doing
Mhm.
it for the art of it, because I think that's one of the only real reasons why FromSoft has the reputation of quality, sticking to their release times. They're doing things that no other developer has really been able to do so far. And I don't
I'm
think they want
gonna
to tarnish it.
I'm gonna sit here and say it as much as I've been waiting for like this is off topic and on topic at the same time, but you're kind of like narrowing my point is that From Software, the way I wish games, because they announced this last year, uh, when that Rubicon trailer came out, I was jumping out of my seat and I was freaking out because I was so happy because I finally, the minute I heard the music and I knew what it was, and then
Yeah.
less than a year later it comes out. Even Maximilian says this. He's like, "Oh, this is like nice that we get an announcement. We don't wait 4 years for it to actually come out, and
Yeah,
we
yeah, I
get
mean, that's been the
gameplay." we get trailers, we get stuff. They have this plan. They want this to be big. I think there's a lot more. I'm very curious. Actually, I'm very curious on what their marketing strategy is for this, because they have to. I know they have to market across the world, but
Yeah.
They own it. That's pretty much
I mean,
it.
they own Mecha right now. I mean, well, they're about to. Armored Core is going to sell a metric ton. I feel like, not just because of the name, but because it has such a strong, loyal,
Mm-hmm.
very star fan base, and there's no one else providing anything. There's what else
The
is
closest
there?
thing was Gundam, and Bandai has kind of, I don't know, to put it, call a spade, they've kind of sullied it a little bit with, desperate attempts at marketing and whatnot. Whereas Armored Core, kind of fell in the back burner, and that kind of
Yeah.
kept it in stasis. And I don't think anybody predicted, FromSoft and then the Soul series really brought them to prominence and whatnot. And now it's a perfect storm in such a good way.
It
And
is. It
I
really
I I,
is.
I don't think we're going to see the likes of something like this in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, scary thing is, I hate to say this, just because pessimist inside me. If Armored Core ends up failing really bad, good luck having any company making a mech game again.
That is true.
that's it's ebbed and flow, and that's kind of sort of how it's always been. It's never been a prime, thing. It's always been a niche market, but it's always been there. And as I said, not to sound like I'm bowing down and trying to pay all this tribute, I'm just recognizing for what it is. FromSoft, but I couldn't think of a better company or a better, you know, iteration of one to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, even if you make the obvious comparison to the other Gundam games as far as the mecha market, there's very limited things in the way of like any customization or anything like that. Armored Core is kind of standalone in the way that the game functions as far as customization and creativity and that kind of freedom that you get.
Yeah, and not just that. I mean, kind of what I said earlier too. Their core concept is flexible. It isn't stuck to that silhouette that the RX-78 has in Gundam. They have a distinct, iconic look.
Yeah.
Armored Core does not. It can adapt and evolve. And then, the whole concept, like one of the core fundamentals is you can adapt on a per sortie basis.
Exactly. I love that too. I'm so glad they brought that up.
It's future proof.
Because, well, I mean, the thing is like, maybe it's just the engineer myself, but I like building. Like, we were talking about this before the show. Like, I could spend 5 hours just, easily, just building a mech, testing stuff out. And sometimes I want to win with a really dumb and terrible build, but
Yep.
sometimes it catches people off guard.
I'm a garage junkie too, man.
Probably all the does anybody play Armored Core that doesn't just spend like 4 hours in the garage, slightly
No.
tuning things?
No, dude. I literally have. Okay, for example, here, it's not Armored Core, it's RTS. How many hours do you think I have in BattleTech right now? I literally have the Steam page put up. You won't believe me.
3,400.
Ooh, that's high. I was gonna go
That's
closer to
low.
like oh god.
Not even close, dude. You gotta up
1,400.
your.
I mean, 14,000 rather.
Not 14,000. So you're lower than 14,000.
Let's go
We're in the
6,
double.
Oh, someone said an S.
7.
7.
Okay, I'll just say it. 6,185 hours.
It's outrageous.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, I mod the game. I do a lot of stuff too. I don't even want to look at my Skyrim time. Oh.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the thing is, though, this would be the first actually, I'm not 100% sure. Ark probably would know this. Has Armored Core ever had a PC release that allowed mods? Because From Software notoriously, some of their they have their own internal tech. They don't use Unreal or anything like that. They do their own stuff, and they've been getting way better at modding now, dude. Armored Core modded sounds insane. People are gonna put Gundams and mech stuff in Mech Wars. Timberwolves are gonna be there. It's gonna be crazy. People will find ways.
Like there hasn't been like an official release, obviously, but obviously with emulation, there's been a bunch of people who have been working on not necessarily like big mods where they're adding new missions and stuff like that, but different balance changes. There was someone I don't know if they ever finished it, but there was someone a couple years ago who was working on a sort of hyper realistic balance patch for Silent Line Portable with emulation, where they had different booster acceleration rates and everything like that, and like they mess with the physics a bunch, I think. But like I said, I don't know if they ever finished it, but I know they definitely worked on it for a couple of
Oh,
years.
is that the guy that did the Ooh, I wish I could remember the person. If you're listening out there, it was a great idea. Someone had, because I played stuff on the PC at Armor Core, like just when I was bored, and I was like, I just want to go find all the weapons and just relive my childhood. But having gravity be an effect, so they would, because like Earth and Mars, for example, so like Mars is about 0.8 times gravity to us being 1, because whatever.
Ooh,
But like,
that's a good concept.
yeah, gravity would really affect
Mhm.
flying mechs and everything like that. They'd be faster in lower gravity and such, and also on vacuum conditions. So there's like all the settlements are like self-sealed and such, and they're pressurized and all that, just like space shuttles and everything are. Airplanes you go in, they're all pressurized. That was a very interesting concept.
Yeah.
So
No, I don't
not
know
the
if it's the same guy, but
I gotta look him up. I gotta add it to my notes. I want to see if I can find that again.
But to interrupt us, but I think Oz has got to call it for the day. So we're gonna. Thanks for coming,
Yeah.
Oz.
Thanks very
Oh,
much for
nice,
having
Oz.
me again.
Yeah.
I'm working back-to-back 12s right now. But yeah, it's been a pleasure being here again. Hope to be again at some point in the future. Maybe
Yeah,
some
it's
more
always a pleasure having you.
maybe some more PvE focused stuff. Huh. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But
Well, we have like almost no PvP info, so yeah, I definitely think there probably will be.
But yeah, hey, nice to
Hey,
meet you, Ark. Nice to meet you there,
Yeah.
Phil.
good to meet you.
hey, I'll leave you with one thing before you go.
All right.
You know what I want? Player versus enemy focus. A mission creator. I want to create my own little battlefield
That'd be
and
nice.
fight it. That's just
That'd
one
be
dream.
interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna be thinking about that. I really will. All right, guys. Thank y'all. Thank y'all very much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
get
Have
some
a good
rest,
one.
man.
Later.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, as far as the emulation and stuff goes, I think that's been the struggle is nobody's really put that much work into kind of the more fun emulations and changing parts and
Yeah.
physics and stuff. Because honestly, you can barely get 5 even running on
Yeah.
emulator.
That's kind of been the big thing, like a big push, especially recently, is just getting all the games in a playable state.
Mhm.
Because as far as I understand it now, they do have at least 5 fully playable on Xenia, I think.
Yeah, it is. It is, and yeah, but even then, you either the textures are weird and your AC is like totally black, or in the garage it's
Yep.
so shaded that everything's
Yeah.
just like silver and chrome.
Yeah, well, it
Or
wasn't that long ago that 4th gen was like that, and
yeah,
it took them, I think, maybe a month or two of just like hammering out that to get it actually functional. So, like that stuff can get fixed pretty quick.
yeah, they're working on it. They have a better one right now that fixes kind of all of the graphical issues, but it severely drops the like performance of the game even on a good computer.
Yeah.
So wait, what is the name of the thing you guys use? 'Cause I use PSX2.
Xenia is the one I hear to
It's for
play
the
5.
Xbox 360 emulator, yeah.
Oh, it's okay. I'm thinking of PlayStation. I'm like, sorry. Because
Yeah.
I've been trying forever to get Silent Line. That's probably my favorite. Um, no, actually, Silent Line, Last Raven are probably my two. Okay, fine, they're all my favorites. But getting to emulate, there's I can't remember if it's I think it's Last Raven. The shaders they use, no one can freaking emulate them. It is like I saw one YouTube video of one guy that kind of got working and to push like an function key to like switch between, and it barely, and then like you were saying, the black screen issue and such. It's just tech wise, because those games are made back before PlayStation used the emotion chip, PS3 used the cell and such, and they had completely different architecture from your PC. And the fact that to this day Sony still doesn't have PS3 emulation tells you a lot, because it's not a unified architecture. This is a technology side come in, and getting that to work. The guy that did it, I guess, doesn't exist anymore. I've done a lot of research on that, and
Do you say something bad about Nintendo? Do you say something bad about
probably.
Nintendo?
Maybe the Yakuza got him. I don't know.
At least for like those particular games, you do have the option to go for the PSP ports instead of the PS2 versions. I mean,
That's
it's
a good
not going to
idea.
look as pretty, but
Yeah. But yeah, it really is varies from game to game on what to play them on.
I didn't think about that. That's a great idea.
I was gonna say PlayStation for 5 is just like a disaster. I think you can't make it past like mission 6. There's all kinds
Yeah.
of graphical issues. It locks up on even just like the start screen, or if you let a video play too long.
yeah, which is a real shame because, from what I understand, Xenia does not or will not have a foreseeable future for any sort of multiplayer, whereas the RPCS3, I think that door is open, but nobody's working to make it work, as far as I'm aware.
Not for that specific game, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some people who do a little bit of multiplayer on Xenia, but the process to go through and even just connect with each other is very
Yeah.
extensive.
I imagine since there's no hosted servers anymore,
Mhm.
someone has to create a server. You have to get their, well, basically get their RDP code, for the lack of a better term, or certificate or ticket, whatever, to actually join the server, which is basically the same thing that happens every time you send an invite to a game. So yeah, I mean, basically, it's very much a fan labor of love. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I kind of want to try that now. I'm actually deleting a few things off Steam because I want to download and try all this and see if I can like get it to work, because I have secrets. I know how to make things work.
I know there is one person floating around Reddit that's trying to get all of them emulated just on his like personal server, and then to play it just on, like internet client based like play. I don't know if it'll work or not.
Oh,
It's
so
a
they're probably using
very
VMs.
ambitious, very
Mhm.
ambitious project.
It is very ambitious. I mean, it'd be super cool, but it's ambitious to say the least.
Yeah.
If you can't get them properly working, on your personal computer and emulator to have it play, through a
Like a cloud streaming service.
yeah.
So that's all I was saying is that's the way I try to do it, is because, well, reasons. Actually, I probably should reinstall Linux. Linux might be able to run it better. But you have to go, if I'm thinking the way you would do it is virtualization. That's what I used to work in, Azure stuff. Um, you have to virtualize it, and GPUs are a problem when it comes to that. Even to this day, well, maybe it's changed since yesterday, but doubt it. Like, do you have an NVIDIA card? Do you have an AMD card? All these
Mhm.
kind of components matter. That's the difference between consoles. Remember, these games never released on PC back in those
Yeah,
days.
everything's the same on everybody's console for the most part.
Yeah, it's a standardization. That's why consoles sell, and no one goes like, I'm gonna go to Best Buy and buy a PC to I mean, yeah, yes, people do, but not to the millions that people buy
Yeah, yeah.
consoles for.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, your PC might be more powerful, but getting getting stuff to run on it is a whole different game.
Yep.
Well, I think we've gone like almost 2 hours now, so I think we'll wrap it up for today. It's been good. Well, thank you, Ark and Phil, for joining us. I'd love to have you on again.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Let you both get some sleep. Have a good one.
Yep. Take it easy.
Oh, looks like it's time to wrap things up. If you enjoyed today's broadcast, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and check out our Discord. You can find me at NoisyWren on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. And if you want to support the podcast, you can find me at patreon.com/NoisyWren. I appreciate the support. Coral is not cheap these days. As usual, the links are in the show notes. Till next time.
Connection terminated.